What if I told you that the person sitting next to you at Starbucks with the worn-out jeans and modest car has $8 million in the bank, while the guy posting his luxury watch collection on Instagram is drowning in debt? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us have been completely fooled about what real wealth actually looks like. We're so busy admiring the flashy displays of fake wealth that we're missing the opportunity to learn from the genuinely wealthy people who are hiding in plain sight all around us. Most millionaires and multimillionaires are completely invisible. They could have 7, 8, or even 9 figures in their investment accounts, and you'd never suspect it because they've mastered the art of stealth wealth. But here's what's exciting. They all follow specific patterns that give them away if you know what to look for. I'm about to reveal 7 telltale signs that someone is secretly wealthy, and if you can adopt even a few of these behaviors, it could be the key to building real wealth yourself. And the 7th sign? It's so counterintuitive that it will completely flip everything you think you know about how wealthy people communicate. Hit subscribe and comment Stealth Wealth if you're ready to spot the truly wealthy and learn their secrets. But that's just the obvious part. The first sign will completely surprise you. Sign 1. Mastered the ability to wait. The first sign that someone is secretly wealthy is something that goes against every instinct of our instant gratification culture. They have mastered the ability to wait. While everyone else is buying things the moment they want them, wealthy people will research a purchase for months, wait for the perfect sale, or sometimes just decide they don't actually need that item at all. Here's where most people reveal they're not actually wealthy. In the ancient forests where survival depended on skill and patience, there lived 2 hunters who had very different approaches to providing for their families. Both men were equally skilled with their weapons and equally knowledgeable about tracking, but their hunting philosophies revealed everything about why some people prosper while others merely survive. The first hunter was driven by immediate needs and instant action. When he spotted any animal in the forest, he would immediately take his shot, regardless of the circumstances. Food is food, he would say, firing his arrow at the first deer he encountered, even if it was far away, partially hidden, or not the best target available. His philosophy was simple: act fast, get results quickly, worry about quality later. This approach yielded some success. The impulsive hunter always had something to show for his efforts and could feed his family regularly. However, his hasty decisions meant he often wounded animals that escaped, wasted arrows on poor shots, and frequently returned home with smaller, tougher game that required more effort to prepare and provided less nourishment. The second hunter operated by completely different principles. He would study animal patterns for days, sometimes weeks, before making a move. He observed weather conditions, feeding times, and migration routes. When he finally took action, it was with absolute precision and perfect timing. "One perfect shot is worth more than 10 rushed ones," he would explain to anyone who questioned his patience. This patient hunter might return empty-handed more often in the short term, but when he did strike, the results were exceptional. He consistently brought home the finest game, well-fed, healthy animals that provided abundant meat and valuable materials for his family. His arrows rarely missed, and he never wasted resources on poor opportunities. Here's what that story reveals about wealth building. Wealthy people understand that most sales aren't actually sales. They're made-up discounts on made-up numbers. They know that if you wait long enough, almost everything goes on clearance eventually. This isn't just about shopping. It's about delayed gratification, which is the key concept that makes people very rich later in life. Wait, the most important part is in the following story about something even more surprising. Sign 2. Live in a modest home below their means. While most people are stretching themselves thin with mortgages on houses they can barely afford, the secretly wealthy are usually doing the complete opposite. They live in homes that seem almost too small or too modest for someone with their income level, or they own their home outright, but will never lead you to believe they're living mortgage-free. Wait, the most important part is in the following story about something even more surprising. In a prosperous kingdom where rulers competed to display their power through magnificent architecture, there lived two kings who governed neighboring territories of equal wealth and influence. Both monarchs had accumulated vast treasuries through wise leadership and successful trade, but their approaches to royal residences revealed profound differences in their understanding of true power. The first king believed that majesty required magnificent displays. He commissioned architects to build an elaborate palace with soaring towers, golden decorations, and countless rooms that sparkled in the sunlight. Every visitor was immediately impressed by the grandeur. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors imported from distant lands, and gardens that required dozens of servants to maintain. The palace became famous throughout the region as a symbol of success and power. However, this impressive display came with hidden costs. The elaborate palace required enormous monthly expenses to maintain. The imported materials needed constant replacement due to weather and wear. The large staff demanded regular salaries. The complex heating and cooling systems consumed vast amounts of resources. Most critically, the king found himself trapped by his own creation. He couldn't reduce expenses without appearing to lose status, and he couldn't relocate easily if circumstances required it. The second king chose a radically different approach that puzzled many observers. Despite having equivalent wealth, he built a comfortable but modest palace that met all his needs without unnecessary extravagance. The structure was beautiful in its simplicity, well-designed, perfectly functional, but unremarkable to outside observers. Visitors often expected something grander from such a successful ruler. This wise king's modest approach provided him with something far more valuable than impressive architecture: financial freedom. His lower living expenses meant more resources available for investments, opportunities, and emergency reserves. He could adapt quickly to changing circumstances without being anchored by enormous fixed costs. Most importantly, his wealth remained liquid and working rather than trapped in walls and decorations. Here's what that story reveals about secret wealth. When you live well below your means, you're not just saving money, you're maintaining flexibility and keeping your options open. True wealth isn't about impressive displays, it's about having choices and control over your financial destiny. This next behavior separates real wealth from fake wealth. Sign 3. Spend on uncommon things. The third sign someone is secretly wealthy is that the money they do spend goes toward things that normal people would never even consider. They're not buying status symbols everyone can see. They're investing in uncommon luxuries that remain invisible unless you spend 24/7 observing their daily life. All of the above becomes meaningless if you miss this detail about human psychology. In the bustling marketplace of an ancient trading city, there lived two successful merchants who had both accumulated substantial wealth through decades of careful business. Both men had enough resources to acquire whatever they desired, but their spending patterns revealed entirely different philosophies about the purpose of money and the nature of true luxury. The first merchant was fascinated by impressive possessions that would announce his success to the world. He filled his home with elaborate furniture that visitors would admire, wore expensive robes that clearly displayed his prosperity, and collected valuable items that sparkled in the light and drew attention wherever he went. His philosophy was simple: wealth should be visible, impressive, and obvious to anyone who encountered him. Every purchase this merchant made served a dual purpose: personal enjoyment and public display. His spending focused on items that others would notice, appreciate, and remember. While these possessions certainly brought him satisfaction, they also required constant maintenance, security, and replacement as fashions changed and competitors acquired similar status symbols. The second merchant operated by completely different principles that seemed almost eccentric to observers. Instead of buying impressive objects, he invested his wealth in acquiring something far more precious: time itself. He hired scribes to handle his correspondence, freeing hours each day for strategic thinking. He employed skilled cooks who prepared nutritious meals, eliminating the time and effort of food preparation. He even paid premium prices for rapid transportation services that could move him quickly between cities when opportunities arose. Additionally, this merchant developed a passion for collecting rare manuscripts and ancient texts that few people could read or appreciate. His treasures were intellectually valuable, but visually unremarkable. Dusty scrolls and faded books that contained wisdom accumulated over centuries. These items meant nothing to casual observers, but represented profound knowledge and cultural heritage to those who understood their significance. Here's what that story reveals about wealthy spending patterns. They understand that time is the only finite resource in life, so they're willing to spend disproportionate amounts to buy it back. They also seek uniqueness over popularity. Owning items that hundreds of thousands of people have isn't impressive enough for someone who values differentiation. You think you've understood everything? There's a pattern the truly wealthy follow when it comes to money decisions. Sign 4. Detailed with small, decisive with big expenses. The fourth sign that someone is secretly wealthy is a fascinating paradox. They'll spend 20 to 30 minutes researching the best $20 portable power bank on Amazon, reading reviews and watching YouTube videos, but then drop $15,000 on a new roof without batting an eye. This behavior reveals a sophisticated understanding of wants versus needs that most people never develop. The following story reveals why silence is more powerful than showing off. In the heart of a bustling commercial district, there operated two merchants who both dealt in goods worth thousands of gold pieces. Their success was comparable, their reputations solid, but their approaches to business decisions revealed fundamentally different philosophies about money management and value assessment. The first merchant treated every transaction equally, applying the same level of scrutiny to both small and large purchases. When buying a simple measuring cup for his shop, he would spend the same hours deliberating as when acquiring expensive inventory. Conversely, when major business opportunities arose requiring quick action, he would apply the same lengthy research process, often missing time-sensitive deals, while he analyzed every detail of significant investments. This approach seemed logical on the surface, but it created problems. His extensive research on trivial purchases consumed time that could have been used productively elsewhere. Meanwhile, his slow decision-making on important matters cost him profitable opportunities that required swift action. He treated a gold coin and a copper coin with identical consideration, failing to recognize that different situations demanded different approaches. The second merchant had developed a more nuanced strategy that initially seemed inconsistent to observers. For small, optional purchases, he became incredibly thorough. He would examine a simple leather pouch from every angle, compare prices across multiple vendors, and ensure he was getting maximum value for even modest expenditures. His philosophy was that small, unnecessary expenses accumulated into significant losses over time. However, when essential business needs arose, this merchant transformed into a model of decisive action. If his warehouse roof developed leaks during the rainy season, he would immediately hire the best craftsmen available, understanding that delays would cause far more expensive damage to his inventory. When crucial trade opportunities emerged with tight deadlines, he acted swiftly and confidently. Here's what that story reveals about wealthy spending habits. They understand that small want purchases often have multiple alternatives worth researching, while necessary expenses require immediate action to prevent bigger problems. This isn't just about money. It's about recognizing that time spent optimizing trivial decisions is time stolen from important opportunities. Here's where psychology meets wealth in the most unexpected way. Sign 5. drive old, reliable cars. The fifth sign someone is secretly wealthy is that they drive a 5 to 10-plus-year-old reliable car that's completely paid off. They're not behind the wheel of flashy BMWs, Porsches, or Lamborghinis because they understand something about depreciation and opportunity cost that keeps them wealthy, while others just look wealthy. This is the moment where everything clicks about stealth wealth. In the golden age of maritime exploration, there were two ship captains who commanded vessels in the same profitable trade routes between distant ports. Both men had earned substantial wealth through years of successful voyages, but their choices in ships revealed entirely different philosophies about transportation, status, and financial wisdom. The first captain was obsessed with sailing the most impressive vessel on the seas. His ship was a magnificent sight: gleaming brass fixtures, polished wood decking, elaborate decorations that caught sunlight like jewels, and sails made from the finest materials available. Every port they entered, crowds would gather to admire the spectacular craft. Other captains envied the vessel's beauty, and passengers paid premium prices just to sail on such an impressive ship. However, this magnificent vessel came with hidden costs that constantly drained the captain's profits. The elaborate decorations required expensive maintenance and frequent replacement due to salt, air, and weather. The premium materials demanded specialized craftsmen for repairs. Most critically, the ship's value plummeted dramatically each year, requiring constant upgrades to maintain its impressive appearance and competitive edge. The second captain chose a completely different approach that seemed almost boring in comparison. His ship was 7 years old when he acquired it, sturdy and reliable but unremarkable in appearance. The vessel had weathered its steepest depreciation during its early years under previous ownership. While not flashy, the ship was known throughout the trading fleet for its dependability, efficiency, and low operational costs. This practical captain understood that a ship's primary purpose was safe, efficient transportation of cargo and passengers from port to port. Every gold piece he saved on unnecessary aesthetics and avoided depreciation was money he could invest in expanding his trading operations, building reserves for emergencies, or purchasing additional cargo capacity that actually generated profit. After 10 years, the contrast was stark. The first captain's beautiful ship had consumed hundreds of thousands in maintenance and depreciation costs while requiring constant debt payments. The second captain owned his vessel outright and had used his savings to build a small fleet of reliable ships. Here's what that story reveals about transportation choices. Wealthy people view cars as tools for getting from point A to point B reliably, not as statements about their success. They'd rather have extra money working in their investment accounts than tied up in depreciating assets. What happens next explains why the richest people seem the most boring. Sign 6. Aware of their image. The sixth sign someone is secretly wealthy is that they're incredibly aware of their image and deliberately manage how others perceive them. They understand that people are generally jealous of what they don't have, and even your best friend who's truly happy for you, 99% of the time will have a small thought wondering, why can't that be me? You think you've understood everything? There's a pattern the truly wealthy follow when it comes to reputation. In the mountains where ancient wisdom was passed down through generations, there lived two masters who had both achieved extraordinary skill in their respective crafts. Both men possessed profound knowledge and had accumulated significant influence throughout the region, but their approaches to reputation management revealed different understandings of how power and respect truly work. The first master believed that recognition required constant demonstration of his abilities. He would publicly showcase his achievements, explaining in detail how he had mastered techniques that others found impossible. At gatherings, he would share stories of his successes, display examples of his finest work, and ensure that everyone understood the full extent of his capabilities and accomplishments. Initially, this approach brought admiration and respect. People were impressed by his obvious expertise and drawn to his confident presentations. However, over time, an unexpected dynamic emerged. Some observers began to feel intimidated or inadequate in comparison. Others started to challenge his claims or attempt to surpass his achievements out of competitive spirit. A few even began to resent his success, whispering criticisms and hoping for his failure. The second master chose a radically different path that seemed almost modest in comparison. When people asked about his accomplishments, he would respond with phrases like, "I've been fortunate to learn a few things," or "I'm still learning myself." He would deflect praise and redirect conversations toward the principles and wisdom that others could apply to their own journeys. This master understood something profound about human psychology. People respect those who don't need to prove themselves more than those who constantly demonstrate their superiority. By maintaining humility and discretion, he avoided triggering envy or competitive feelings in others. Instead, people sought his guidance because they felt comfortable around him and trusted his judgment. Here's what that story reveals about wealthy people's approach to image. When you ask a wealthy person about their net worth, they'll typically say something like, "I've done pretty well for myself," or "I get by," or "I'm certainly not the richest person I know." This isn't false modesty, it's strategic wisdom that protects both their security and their relationships. All of the above becomes meaningless if you miss this detail about the most revealing behavior of all. Sign 7. Avoid talking about the 3 E's. The seventh and most telling sign that someone is secretly wealthy is that they avoid talking about the 3 E's at all costs: earn, expense, and excess. While others constantly discuss their income, latest purchases, and lavish lifestyle, the truly wealthy have learned that silence on these topics is far more powerful than any boasting could ever be. What happens next explains why the richest people seem the most boring. In a valley where 2 rivers flowed toward the same destination, travelers would often compare the waterways and debate which was more impressive. These rivers represented 2 completely different approaches to power and presence, teaching profound lessons about strength, influence, and the nature of true force. The first river was impossible to ignore. It crashed loudly over rocks, creating spectacular waterfalls and dramatic rapids that could be heard from miles away. The rushing water constantly announced its presence, churning and frothing as it carved through the landscape. Travelers would stop to photograph the dramatic scenery and share stories about the river's impressive displays of power. This noisy river demanded attention and received it. Every passerby knew exactly where it was, how fast it moved, and how much water it carried. The constant roar made conversation difficult near its banks, and the turbulent surface reflected sunlight in dazzling but chaotic patterns that hurt the eyes to watch for extended periods. The second river moved with profound silence and seemingly effortless grace. Its surface appeared calm and undisturbed, giving no obvious indication of the tremendous power flowing beneath. Travelers often underestimate this quiet waterway, assuming it is shallow or slow-moving based on its peaceful appearance. However, those who understood rivers knew the truth. The silent river was far deeper, carried more water, and possessed infinitely more power than its noisy neighbor. Its quiet strength could move massive boulders along the riverbed without creating surface disturbance. It carved deeper channels through solid rock over time, reshaping entire landscapes through a patient, persistent force that worked continuously without announcement. Here's what that story reveals about wealthy communication patterns. If someone constantly talks about how much they make, their expensive purchases, or their excessive lifestyle, it usually means they're stretching their budget and trying to maximize every dollar spent by getting social validation from it. The truly wealthy understand that real power whispers while fake power shouts. The energy that others waste on appearances and impressing people can be redirected toward building actual net worth. That's why those who are quiet about the 3 E's are often the ones who are secretly wealthy. True wealth doesn't need an audience, It simply flows with quiet, unstoppable force. There you have it, 7 powerful signs that reveal secret wealth hiding in plain sight. From mastering the ability to wait and living in modest homes, to spending on uncommon luxuries and being meticulous with small expenses while decisive with big ones. From driving reliable older cars and carefully managing their image, to avoiding all talk about earnings, expensive purchases, and excess. Here's what ties it all together. Truly wealthy people have learned that real power whispers while fake power shouts. They understand that the goal isn't to look wealthy, it's to be wealthy while maintaining freedom, security, and genuine relationships. Your challenge this week: pick one of these behaviors and start practicing it. Maybe it's waiting 30 days before your next big purchase. Or maybe it's being more selective about what you share regarding your finances. Which sign surprised you most, and which one will you start implementing first? Drop a comment with the number of the sign that resonated with you. If this video opened your eyes to what real wealth actually looks like, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to understand stealth wealth. Remember, the most successful people are often the ones you'd never suspect.